back here on Social Media Day, and we're going to talk to an old friend and a very good coach, the coach of our water polo program at Indiana, Barry King. You can follow the water polo team on Twitter at IU Water Polo. And this is a team ranked in the top 20 in the country, has a chance to go to the NCAA tournament. And Barry, thanks so much for joining us. You've taken on, possibly for your sport, the most grueling schedule imaginable, taking on most of the teams ranked in the top 20, and your team has really held their own.
We have been pretty competitive, and early that was bad scheduling on my part at the beginning of the season. It was a lot of.
It's like an off day when you took on the 6th-ranked team.
It was a very stern test early, and we were hoping that we would get some benefits from it, regardless of wins and losses, and I think those came to fruition somewhere in the end of March.
Well, and a player who's been a standout over the course of her career here, and I was just actually on the phone talking about her, Jackie Coley. Talk about her last year, scored 80 goals, which might have been a school record, and was one of the best players in the country and an All-American.
Right. Yeah, she had a very special year last year. Shot the ball extremely well, but got the ball in a lot of positions where she was allowed to, convert and have some good looks and things like that. Has had what some people might consider a down year for her, even though she's been a stalwart for us defensively. I mean, she's spread the responsibility of scoring around. We're kind of on pace to have about the 3rd or 4th best scoring year we've ever had, and we'll end up having 5 people score 50 goals. So that's quite a diverse attack.
Well, and it's probably a situation too where she is at the top of the scouting report, and her name is underlined probably 4 times. So how has she dealt with that?
She struggled a little bit early, actually. I mean, the attention that came her way, she didn't enjoy that very much. But that was good for us, good for her to learn how to accept that pressure and open doors for other people, and good for her teammates to learn where they needed to step in and do their thing.
All right, we've got a couple of questions with our interactive element here.
Excellent.
This one's from JB. With so many girls from the West Coast and Canada, how do you have time to go on recruiting trips with practices and traveling for games?
It's a must-do, and so I've had the benefit of great assistant coaches that I feel that either I can leave and they can run everything themselves, or I can send them out and they know what we're looking for.
Sarah writes in, or has a question, who has stepped up the most for the team this season?
In terms of probably improvement from first action to most recent, Shea Fournier, a freshman from Winnipeg, has really embraced kind of a style change that we were talking to her about quite a bit early. But the hallmark of this group has really been the collective effort, and there's a number of kids who have played at their highest ability and really got us into contests that previously we may not have been in.
In an interview that we did a couple of months ago, you had an interesting comment. I asked you how you recruited against some of the big schools in California with California kids, and you mentioned that many of those California schools that are the powers in water polo are in major metropolitan areas, UCLA, USC, Stanford, that if a kid wants the quintessential college town experience, that Bloomington is a great fit, and that's been a nice way that you've been able to build up your program over the years.
Right. I mean, there just isn't anything that looks like Indiana in California. So.
And you say that as a Californian.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in what would have been Bloomington if UCLA was in the middle of the town in California. But if first and foremost, Indiana remains a top-notch value in higher education. Second, it is unlike aesthetically almost any other place. And the campus and the people have a way of selling themselves. And so when somebody comes out to visit, it's not a very long walk from the visit to the commitment.
Well, and I mentioned that Pat Kraft said that the rowing event, the Dale England Cup, is one of the best spectator sports that he has been able to see in his time in Indiana. I can say, as somebody who's gone to some of your matches over the years, that I think water polo is pretty exciting to watch. Very physical, very fast-paced. It's amazing to watch the endurance of these student athletes. It's high scoring in its own way. It's done in an hour. It's a great value, and you've got a huge event coming up here in Bloomington.
Right, the conference championship will be here. The Collegiate Water Polo Association college championship, conference championship will be here April 29th, 30th, and May 1st. It is the avenue for our conference into the NC2A tournament, and we pretty much have to win that to get a bid to the NCAA. So it's going to be quite a big deal. The first time we've had it back here in 6 years, so should be pretty exciting.
Well, and you are also the coach of a team that went to the Final Four. Why don't you talk about that special year?
That was a group that reminds me quite a bit of the group that I have now. I had really terrific senior leadership that year, and a group that just actually great senior leadership, dynamic freshman class, just like we have this year, and in an incredibly smart group, and this group again reminds me of the same. It was things kind of fell into place. We played very well at the end of the year. It was we kind of took our lumps early against big competition in 03, just like we did this year, and did nothing but get better. And so I think the future is bright.
Well, we've got a question, and this person asks great questions. Yo MTV Raps, with the other Dr. Dre.
Sweet.
If you remember it.
I do.
You remember in the late 1980s. What is on your iPod right now?
That's hilarious because I asked that of most recruits too. Adele live.
I'm a big fan of Adele.
Adele live from Soho is actually.
And you and I do not gel music-wise.
No, we don't. We don't.
No.
You're a little bit too much of a Kanye person.
Yes,
for me,
I'm a little more urban than you are.
Yes. No. Adele. Yeah.
All right. What does your team need to do? This is from Fire Marshal Bill. What does your team need to do to win the conference championship?
We need to lock it up defensively more than I guess we have been a little bit. We've lost 2 games in conference to Michigan and to Hartwick, where we lost due to self-inflicted wounds, mainly on the defensive end, and we need to shore some things up that way. But I like the way that we're playing. Actually, I mean, we play with a certain amount of confidence that this group hadn't necessarily done previous couple of years, and there's a sense that we can overcome a certain number of mistakes and still remain in contest. So but if we can get back to kind of the really lockdown defense that we were playing in mid-March, then we'll be fine.
And obviously you don't want to discount any opponent in the conference, especially in a conference championship one-and-done type situation, but it looks like there are 3 teams that are really at the forefront, really fighting to get their way into the NCAA tournament.
Right. Us and Hartwick and Michigan, and Princeton's coming on playing much better too. So I would say it's kind of more like a 4-teamer, maybe with a 3B or something. But they're all very evenly matched squads, and it will really come down to maybe who has the hottest goalkeeper, and who converts their power plays.
I'll tell you what, you're a popular guy here, Barry. You might have gotten more questions than any other coach at this point. We got one from Terry. Where has the team made the biggest strides from the beginning of the season to now?
Actually, in the power play. That's a great segue. we were doing a good job in half-court offense of drawing the exclusion fouls that lead to power plays, and not kind of converting at about a 22 to 25% rate, and that's just not real. You're not going to win a whole lot of contests doing that, and some of that had to do with our opposition. A lot of it had to do with our decision making. But in the recent, the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been closer to about 60%, which is above average, and that's been our biggest, our biggest move.
What has been the biggest challenge for you? And Amy Robertson was in a similar situation, even though she joined a conference with established powers, but starting a program from the club level from scratch, making it a varsity program, and then turning it into a winner here in Indiana.
Just kind of getting the word out that we were who we were was the biggest challenge. I mean, I've seen water polo played in every backwater that plays it, and in the United States.
You went to the Ukraine this year.
I went to Ukraine last year, last summer to watch some European stuff. But when we were getting started, it was I was in a lot of places that play. Just searching out, marketing Indiana as much as I was evaluating players, and that was a big challenge. I mean, we were on the road a lot trying to establish a presence as much as we could.
Well, and you were talking to Steve Peterson before you came on, and I know that you follow several of the athletic programs here at Indiana. There really is a nice camaraderie, generally speaking, amongst all the coaches here at IU.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and the programs support each other.
Yes, yeah, indeed. Especially, I rode in college, so Steve and I have a little bit of, a little bit deeper connection, and but in general, yes, absolutely. In fact, a lot of my colleagues, water polo wise, have expressed their somewhat of their jealousy because I talk about our staff all the time. I was hanging out with this and this person and that person. And they're like, we don't see anybody on our staffs. So it's a good situation here.
Well, and you've been here. You're one of the longer tenured coaches here at Indiana, which is kind of hard to believe.
Very much so.
But you look at how things have changed technologically, where we were able to stream one of your water polo matches a couple of years ago. This last couple of weeks ago, you ended up having your contest on the Big Ten Network.
Right,
now you've got a Twitter account at Indiana Rowing. You've
water polo.
At water polo. Sorry about that. IU Water Polo. I need to start crossing them off as I read them off here. But talk about the growth and exposure for all of the 24 programs here in Indiana.
Oh, that's mind-boggling, and I wish I could say anything intelligent about any of this, because I like email and talking on the phone, and I got a cell phone with a full keypad so that I could type texts instead of doing the thing where the kids can and it guesses the word that you want and all that kind of stuff. And then they took texting away from us 3 months later, so I was stuck with this huge phone. But it has changed the dynamic so much, and we signed a really large class for next year in November, and whereas even 8 years ago, most of those kids wouldn't have had any interaction until they showed up on campus a year later. They're all friended each other on Facebook. They have their own class of 15. Indiana Water Polo Class of 2015 page group, and all this kind of stuff. So that has changed. That has changed the interaction of your team and potential recruits and fans and parents so much. It's really mind-boggling.